Jews who think that this man must be thrown out if you want peace, if you want ceasefire. And I hope God that the Hamas will not fall in their trap, in spite of the fact there will be every effort made on February the 13th in Egypt. And once Egypt commits this suicide and let these come in to their area and provide them food and sanitation and water, temporarily that will be fine and will look as a human compassion. But believe you me, that this wretched man has a long-term program. Next, as he came as an immigrant and occupied in 75 years the whole of more than now 80 to 90% of Palestinian sacred land, is going to do this to Sinai. And all the way is going to reach to Cairo and beyond. And I think no matter what the king or queen or whatever you want to call this person, the other person who has border with them, the Jordanian king, going to a hypocrite, going to another liar who supplied the bombs, who supplies billions of dollars to this illegitimate child he created and gave birth to it in 1940s. How that man stood there, an old man who can hardly think and is a president of the United States, just a puppet in the White House, and expecting that he will speak the truth and he will not lie and will help in the ceasefire and will have any feeling for the suffering of women and children and those newborns wrapped in their coffin and their mothers dying. The children don't fight. Why are you killing the children? More than 50% they kill the children. Women, especially that age, with so many kids, mothers and grandmothers, they don't fight. Why are you killing them? And you have not been able to kill a sizable number of what you think and claim that you have. You have hardly made any dent in the Hamas or this resistance or excess of resistance, natural, whose forefathers you killed miserably, caged them for more than 16 to 17 years. So why on earth are you still crying about 7th of October when you did all this to this? This was a reaction to what you have been doing to them. That has been for all the crimes, the cruelty you committed on them. And you let them as slaves, giving them work permits, both to the West Bank and here. And look what you've done to the West Bank by having all this scum of the society and put them by force as settlers. So even your own people are saying you are a liar. Even your own people want to throw you out. Even privately we hear that this old man in the White House called you to shut up and stop. But look at the pride, look at this, the state of hatred in you. So how can you be a normal person? You are worse than a cruelest animal who wants to have total victory. I don't know what victory you want. How do you defeat a Jewish ideology of Zionism? And how for thousands of years you kept it alive, and this is what you have done. Look at the bloodshed you have, and you've taken part in it, and you're proud. Look at the picture, your picture in the childhood. You are barefoot, naked, only a shirt on your hair. This is your background. But Zionism is in your blood, your father. You should really be ashamed, and you should now disappear from this on your own. Hitler went down into the basement and shot him in his head and committed suicide. I think if you don't want to do that yourself, ask your wife to help you in it. And if you don't want to ask your wife to do something for it, then let the ceasefire be there and live the life as and repent, regret, apologize. Maybe the Creator will spare you from not throwing you in the deepest pits of the hell to burn forever. This is, with some evidence, I'm going to take leave. And I think this it should be a lesson for Egypt and Jordan, that if you this time do not focus yourself and took your areas like Golan Heights back, like the river forms, like you do not let this strip of Gaza be separated from the West Bank. Take the whole of the area in between is yours, all the way up to Elet Port. Take whole of this south, including this Gaza Strip and West Bank with Jerusalem as your capital, and let these people have the remaining 20 to 30% of the land. This is the time with multiple borders, multiple attacks. You are not focused. You are not creeping just like a turtle and occupying foot by foot and throwing them out of Tel Aviv, throwing them out of the rest of, I think, so-called Israel, and let them have a small Jewish enclave. And that is the best revenge you can take from this cruel, I think, group gathered now from the whole world for you by God Almighty. And you don't have to go into the different countries to look for them. So this opportunity, do not lose this opportunity. Do not fall trap into these any negotiations of 6 weeks. This man is a liar. The whole his council is liars. All his IDF is the cruelest people he has done. And he look at that. Even he doesn't have a feeling for those boys and girls who are killed and their dead bodies in thousands are sent. And the hospitals of Israel, the Gaza, 90% he destroyed. So his own are filled with now people who are in depression. All his coastlines, villages are all hotels are vacant. All his production lines have stopped. Airlines have only departures, very few arrivals, and nothing arrives at the ports. Countries are now stopping the arms supply to them. The European conscious on the run is waking up. Sooner the Arabs now wake up, and quicker there will be a peace in this region. And I can assure you, the peace in Gaza and putting this strip with the West Bank up to the Elat as an independent Palestinian state will stop the Yemenis. They will be all back again, freedom of trade in the Red Sea, in the Mediterranean Sea, and people will have cheap food items, goods at their doorsteps from all across the world. But not when this man is around, and this man insists and is facing and opposing the whole world, including the United Nations, made the International Court of Justice helpless, United Nations Security Council helpless, with the bloody veto power of his master, his, I hate to call him his creator, but in fact, that's what the Americans are, but not all the American presidents. The one who weren't and who still aren't were thrown out of the White House, insulted and accused and impeached. I take your leave.
Coverage of the war, we go to Tel Aviv, where we're joined by Gideon Levy, an award-winning Israeli journalist and author, columnist for the newspaper Haaretz, a member of its editorial board. His most recent piece headlined, "If it isn't a genocide in Gaza, then what is it?" Gideon, welcome back to Democracy Now! Talk about what Israelis see on television, where most get their news. We just did this whole piece on the killing of Gazan journalists, Palestinian journalists. We've never seen anything like this anywhere in modern history, where you have between 80 and over 100 Palestinian journalists killed in just a matter of weeks. What do Israelis understand is happening?
The main question, Amy, is what they don't see or what they are not being shown. Because as you know, and as your viewers definitely know, Israeli media is quite a free media, commercial-owned, quite liberal, no pressure from the government or secret services or army or things like this. Anything it does voluntarily. And the Israeli media decided almost wall-to-wall, maybe except of my newspaper, Haaretz, all the rest, it's not only TV, also newspapers. They decided that they are part of the Israeli propaganda machinery. They stopped being journalists. And this they do in two ways. The first one is the most serious one. They don't show Gaza. The Israeli average viewer doesn't see Gaza at all. He sees the soldiers, he sees the families of the hostages, he's being told day and night about the Israeli sacrifice. He's being told day and night how brave are the soldiers. You see it 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and only one thing you don't see, the suffer of Gaza. And the media decided not to show it, not because anyone pushed the media not to do it. They do it because they know very clear that this is what their viewers don't want to see. And they want to please them. And by this, they are betraying our first mission, to tell the full story. You know, there are Israelis who wouldn't care less to see all those terrible images and say, Hamas is to be blamed, the Arabs are to be blamed, they deserve it, they are barbarian, everything is fine. But they have to see what is being done on our behalf. So that's the first level. The second level, which is less important but still must be mentioned, is that Israeli media speaks now only in one voice. There is no room for any critic about the war. There is no room for any question marks. I don't remember a war in which, after so many stages, still the entire media is just a pale echo of the propaganda machinery of the army.
Well, Gideon, your newspaper, Haaretz, is somewhat different from the rest of the press, but how widely read is it within Israel, and who reads Haaretz?
Haaretz is not a big newspaper in terms of quantity, but it is still quite an influential newspaper, both abroad, as you know, because it's being published both in English and in Hebrew. And also in Israel, still parts of the elite are reading it. I don't want to say that every Israeli reads Haaretz, but every Israeli knows about Haaretz. And through the social media, it has some kind of influence, but it is obviously very limited.
Can you talk about the levels in Gaza we're hearing about, of starvation, that every Palestinian is hungry right now, the babies being pulled from the rubble? I mean, we're thousands of miles away from you. Tel Aviv is very close to Gaza. What do they see when it comes to casualties?
Nothing. They hear the figures, but figures are only figures. It's only statistics. It doesn't make you feel, it doesn't make you understand the scale of the tragedy, the scale of the crimes, I must say. You know, you watch all the international networks and you see Gaza. You see the children dying on the dirty floors of the hospitals, bleeding to death. You see the uprooted people, you see the destruction, you see the suffer of hundreds of thousands of people, and obviously the starvation. And in Israel, you see only the soldiers, only the families of the hostages, only the scenes where you don't see Palestinians at all. It seems as if they don't exist. Now, Amy, that's not new because the Israeli media betrayed the coverage of, betrayed its mission by covering in the same way the occupations throughout so many years. It was always dehumanizing the Palestinians as much as possible. But this time we reach a level that I don't remember such a level, because you can really watch for hours Israeli TV and have no clue what's going on in Shifa Hospital or in other hospitals or in uprooted neighborhoods, and where are the people, how do they make their living, do they get some food? Nothing of this. Nothing which might remind us that the Palestinians are human beings. This is almost a taboo. Don't mention them as human beings.
Gideon, Prime Minister Netanyahu keeps assuring the international community that Israel does not intend to permanently occupy Gaza. But what is he saying domestically to the Israeli people? He even has two Twitter handles, one that's an official one, and then another that is more geared toward sending out incendiary messages to the population.
Just this morning, he was quoted in a private talk, I think, that the war will continue at least until 2025. And nobody sees the end, nobody knows the end. There is no end game, there is no plan what to do the day after. And the Israelis start to believe now that this might last for many years, at least the occupation of Gaza, obviously without intention. Almost everything that Israel did in the last decades was without intention, but it always came out. It never intended to go for wars, and it always finds itself in war. It never intended to create an occupation of over 50 years, and it came out like this. No. The intention is one thing, and the results are another thing. Israel has no plan to leave Gaza in the coming months or years, which doesn't mean that Israel will stay there. But I don't see any alternative right now. What will they do?
I wanted to ask you about your paper, Haaretz, reporting that a group of family members of Israelis who were killed in Kibbutz Be'eri on October 7th, in the Hamas attack on Israel, are demanding a probe into how their relatives died. An Israeli brigadier general recently admitted he ordered an Israeli tank commander to fire on a home where Hamas fighters were holding 15 Israeli hostages. Brigadier General
यूनिवर्सल टेलीविजन को सब्सक्राइब करना ना भूलें, उसके बाद बेल बटन पे क्लिक करें और अपने कमेंट्स के सेक्शन में अपने कीमती जो ख्यालात का इजहार ज़रूर